Hitler would love Humza's hate speech law. Now, I bet you think you know what I'm going to say. You think I'm going to say Hitler was a totalitarian who crushed dissent. Anyone who disagreed with him, then they felt the full force of the state. Humza's the same. He wants to crush political opponents, people who disagree with him. That's not what I'm going to say. I mean, there is some truth in that. I mean, let's not carry it away. There's obviously a very different scale, but there is some truth in that. It's to do with suppressing alternative viewpoints. Let's put it that way. But my point's different. My point is this. Some people have argued, and they've said, if there'd been hate speech laws in Germany, that would have stopped Nazism. That would have stopped them in their tracks. That would have nipped it in the bud. Well, there's a slight problem with that argument. And the problem is that they did have hate speech laws in Germany in the 20s, leading into the 30s as well. In fact, in Germany, as the Nazis were rising to power and prominence, it was illegal to insult religious communities. How did that work out? How did that work out in stopping the spread of anti-Semitism in Germany? One might say it didn't quite work. Hundreds of Nazis were convicted under this law. Many of them were imprisoned. And what was the result of that? It made them into martyrs. It drew attention to their cause. Hitler was able to present himself as someone who has been silenced. They're trying to shut me up because they're scared of the truth. So the hate speech laws in Germany helped the Nazis to gain power. Now, once they gained power, they made their own speech laws because the precedent had been set. So they changed the laws to clamp down on their political opponents. An example of that was some brave rebel in occupied Norway trained his dog to do a salute like Hitler, like taking the mickey out of Nazis. And the Nazis clamped down and punished him for it. It's quite curious because someone was punished in Scotland for getting their dog to salute like Hitler as well, but we'll come on to that later. So what will these hate speech laws achieve here? Well, who will be prosecuted? Well, the law says you have to be threatening or abusive, or in the case of race and national identity, colour, insulting will be enough. Right, threatening. Well, threatening is already illegal. It's not okay to be threatening. So what they've added is there's a more serious sort of threatening if it stirs up hatred. So it's completely unnecessary law. Right, how about being abusive? Now, the problem with abusive is the definition of abusive normally includes insulting as well. So would you like some aggressive LGBT activist to decide what's abusive or not? Would you be happy for some BLM race war advocate to decide what's abusive? Would you be happy for some female supremacist to decide what's abusive? Well, no. And these are the people who are going to be deciding to make reports. They'll go along to the sex shop or the mushroom farm or whatever to make their reports of hate crimes. And the police, stuffed full of equality and diversity training, might well think, oh, right, women, sexism, well, we are supposed to, I better write this down, let's pass it on. If it ends up going to the court, can we rely on the justice system to produce justice? Well, not particularly, not very confident, looking at the way they've dealt with similar cases so far. Don't have a lot of confidence in that. So there's grounds to be worried. But will it be me that'll be in court charged with hate speech, stirring up hatred? To be honest, I don't think it will be. Now, if it is, that will be just fantastic for the Scottish Family Party. It'll be fantastic. We'll get so much attention. We'll get so much sympathy. It will be a massive boost for the party. But I don't think it's going to happen. Now, there'll be lots of reports about me and lots of reports about the Scottish Family Party. Police Scotland will be paying for a bit of extra cloud storage to store all the documentation of the incidents reported. But I don't think it will be me. I don't think it'll be the Scottish Family Party that end up convicted of stirring up hatred. Not yet, in any case, because we're too polite, we're too respectful, and we're too careful in what we say. So if anyone tries to make the case that something, for example, I've said is abusive and threatening, well, they'll really have a hard job doing that. Now, what some people will do in our situation is they'll say, okay, let's deliberately ramp up the rhetoric. Let's be a bit more outrageous and provocative and offensive. Let's see if we can get them to come and charge us with a hate crime, because that will be great publicity. Would we do that? Of course not, because that's against our principles. But some people will, and some nasty people will do that. So the first cases that we hear about of convictions under this hate speech legislation, well, it might be people who have generally been threatening and abusive. Let's say someone's followed someone on the street screaming, "You effing tranny," at them. Now, okay, I mean, that has been threatening, it has been abusive, and it's fair enough for the police to intervene. Now, if at this point you're thinking, "Oh, no, free speech, you're not really for free speech." Okay, imagine this case. A woman walking along the street, and someone walks up to them and says, "Wow, you're the ugliest woman I've ever seen in my life," and walks along with her for the next 10 minutes, hurling abuse and insults at her. And it gets to a police officer, and the woman says, "Excuse me, officer, this man's been following me for 10 minutes, hurling abuse at me. Can you do something about it?" Would you like the police officer to say, no, freedom of speech, he can say what he likes, it's a free country? Well, I say, of course not. That's been abusive. You could say it's a form of harassment. But we've already got laws covering that sort of thing. But the first cases will be things that would have been illegal in any case, but will make people think, oh yeah, maybe we did need those hate speech laws in any case. Right, but what other sort of people might get convicted? I mean, for example, there's a YouTuber, I think is in Glasgow, called Goodfella. Now, what would I say about him? Let's say I don't like his attitude to race. Let's put it that way, understating significantly. He might find himself charged with stirring up racial hatred. I mean, there's lots of pretty unpleasant racist people around. When we put up our party election broadcast a few years ago, it was a black woman presenting it, and the first comment underneath it was, "F off, back to Africa." So that sort of person might find themselves in court. I've seen some pretty unpleasant anti-Semitic comments online recently. Maybe it'd be them. Maybe some members, I don't know, the National Front, Patriotic Alternative. Maybe some people involved with those parties might say something particularly outrageous. They'll find themselves in court. Someone like Lawrence Fox, that sort of figure, who shoots from the hip and says some pretty outrageous and offensive things, maybe he will find himself charged with hate speech. And to be honest, all those people, they'll love it. They will absolutely love it. Christmas will have come early. It will boost support and they'll be able to play the victim. Their Twitter followings will go through the roof and they will be able to present themselves as the fearless defenders of free speech. Look at Count Dankula. He made his dog pretend to do a sort of Hitler salute, and he was convicted for it, and as a result of it, has become a massive online celebrity. Again, he is entertaining, he's funny, whatever, so it wasn't just that. But that was a huge step for him in bringing him to public prominence. Now, I'm not using him as an example of a really bad person, because I don't think he is. I mean, he does say some things that I think go too far. But that's an example of the way that punishing someone can lead to them becoming famous, if you like. It can give them a massive, massive platform. So while the Scottish Family Party is considered respectful and temperate, we've had our scrapes with the authorities, but as far as the hate speech legislation is concerned, we'll probably get away with it for the time being, maybe later on down the line. But that will result as being sort of ignored to some degree. We won't be the story, we won't be the headlines in the newspapers. So congratulations, Humza. You are delivering a huge boost for nasty extremists in Scotland. And you're going to polarise political debate by lavishing attention on bad characters. Now, at this point, as I so often do, I just need to say a word to those of you who might be suffering from the conservative delusion. The conservative delusion is the belief that, oh, I'm against all this sort of stuff. I'm a conservative. I vote conservative. When this was going through the Parliament, the conservative MSPs basically were saying, yeah, it would sort of agree, maybe you need to change this detail, just tweak it here and there. In the end, they voted against it. They're now trying to present themselves as the great guardians of freedom of speech. But as this went through the Parliament, they didn't really oppose it. They went with the flow as usual, just nibbling around the edges. And here we are, we've got it. So if you want a strong, principled, consistent opposition to this type of policy, you need to support the Scottish Family Party. Join us via the link below. Thanks very much for watching again.